Hi there, I'm Dre, the host and founder of the Dragon Network, an online member-based community where health IT professionals can exchange ideas, share experiences, and collaborate with each other on all things health IT. For this week's video, I'd like to continue a conversation we started a couple weeks ago on blockchain. So I'm going to link to that other post down in the description. But today, let's talk about blockchain networks and what types of networks really exist. And with each of them, I'll also touch on how I think they may be leveraged in the healthcare space. So for background information, let's keep in mind that with a blockchain network, one of the underlying principles is that it is a decentralized or distributed model, meaning that a copy of the blockchain exists on all nodes that are participating. So that is quite different than our current setup, where most applications in the healthcare space tend to be a client-server type relationship, where all of the information is housed in a central location, so central server locations, and all of the endpoints or nodes will communicate back and forth to the server each time they need to read or write information. So in general, there are three different types of blockchain networks. There is, of course, some hybrids out there, but we'll just touch on the three main ones for right now. So the first is a public blockchain. So this is where anyone in the world with an internet connection can access that blockchain as long as they know how to get to it, and they have the ability to read and write data as long as they meet the criteria of the blockchain. So as long as they meet the validity requirements, they can contribute information to the chain, they can take information down from the chain, and they can sort of interact however they'd like. So great examples of public blockchains are cryptocurrencies, so Bitcoin and Ethereum. Those are public. They still have consensus, they still have governing models behind them, Bitcoin having a proof of work and Ethereum having a proof of stake, but in general, they are public and available to anyone as long as you know how to get to it and as long as you meet the requirements that are set by the blockchain parameters. So the next one is a public permissioned blockchain. So with a public permissioned blockchain, anyone can participate, but the administrative oversight of that blockchain is limited to select nodes. That includes the parameters and the guidelines that are set for consensus. So a great metaphor that we could use for this is ATMs, or automatic teller machines. So they are not currently structured on blockchain technology, at least most of them are not, but from a conceptual perspective, they illustrate in a great way how a public permission chain would work. So ATM machines are in public spaces, so theoretically anyone who's in that location can walk up and utilize that machine. There are parameters that are set by the machine in order to access and interact. So you need to be a member of the Star Network or the Interact Network or something, Visa Network, something like that, and have a card. The card you have needs to have a PIN, it needs to authenticate, but you can be anyone with any card and participate. The rules about the ATM, so how the rules function and what it's allowed to do and what it will perform, those are not set by the people using it. So if everyone in the world or everyone in a location collectively decided that they wanted the ATM to give them an extra $100 with every withdrawal that they took, they can't just agree to do that and have that be a new rule. So the parameters that are set by the ATM are actually controlled by a specific group of people, a permissioned group of people, and in this instance it's the bank, and a collection of banks. So anyone who belongs to that Star or Interact or Visa network is going to agree to what those rules of those automated teller machines are. So that is more or less how the permissioned public blockchains work. So the final network type that exists with blockchain is private permissioned. With private permissions, not everyone can get to it. So only specific people are allowed to interact with that network, and they require some form of authentication or some sort of validation of identity before that they can do that. In addition to that, there is also another layer where not every single node is making general consensus, but the consensus is actually still controlled by a subgroup of nodes. So only certain nodes within the network are actually participating in setting the parameters and the rules and the guidelines around how that blockchain functions. So if we want to look at a non-technical example of this, we can look at something like medical school. So if you are in medical school and you are checking on your grades, you're looking at assignments, you're interacting and sending things back and forth with the computer system, that is something that only students of that school have the ability to do. So you need to apply to school, you need to actually get into the school, and you need to become a student in order to get your access granted. Once you have your access granted and you can sort of interact with the school's network to actually look things up, submit assignments, and that type of stuff, then you also have to abide by the rules of that network that are set by certain individuals or administrators that are participating in it. So you don't get to decide what the rules are, when you can access things, how you can see them, that type of stuff. That's set by the school administrators. You may have a voice, or there may be a student body voice, but it is a subgroup of nodes that actually sets the rules, and then a permissioned group of people who are able to access it. So I, not being in med school, can't just find the website and magically find my way onto the system and log in a scenario like that. So that's the third type. So again, they're public permissioned, and private permission. So in a healthcare space, there's actually opportunity for us to use all of the different types. So where would we use each one of them? So let's look at public to start. If we're looking at a public blockchain, one of the spaces that it may be helpful in is patient education or caregiver education. So documents that are created would be uploaded to the chain or accessible through interaction with the chain, but you do want them to be accessible by anyone essentially who has the ability to go find them and who understands how to interact with that environment. There isn't necessarily a situation where you have them contributing to the information, but you would want them to interact with the blockchain to be able to perhaps download it, save it to their computers, things like that. The second one, with public permissioned. So public permissioned doesn't mean you don't have to meet validity rules to get there. It just means that anyone has the ability to access it. So if we look at public permissioned, one of the things that we might look at are patient portals. So APIs that we have on our smartphones, things like that, where you still need to meet the validity requirements and you still need to be who you're going to say you are. So it doesn't mean there's no privacy or security that's associated with it. But you can be anywhere on any computer in any location in the world to be able to get at that. And then that is controlled, the parameters and the rules are set by a very specific group or collection of individuals that have nodes on the network. So the third and final one, private permissioned, is likely something that we would see first in healthcare, and these tend to be things that are within the network sort of ecosystem of a healthcare environment. So these ones absolutely would require that they be restricted and have the highest level of security for only a certain group of people. So one of the ways that we could see something like a private permissioned is physician credentialing, so the ability to interact with a blockchain that is tracking physician credentials and permissions. You don't want anyone everywhere being able to get to it. You also still want to have a discrete number of participating nodes actually controlling what that consensus looks like and what the rules and parameters are. So that would be a great one. Another one is if there is some interactive data that's required with patients that is only within that healthcare organization, or if you have staff members accessing things that are unique to that environment, and outside of that, you don't necessarily want them to be able to get at everything everywhere. So those are the three main types of networks that exist in blockchain today. There are, of course, hybrid versions of all of this, and I'm not going to rule out an additional network type being added, considering that blockchain is one of those technologies that continues to evolve and innovate over time. But for now, that's where they're at, and those are some examples of what they may look like in the real world and in the healthcare IT space. So I hope today's video was helpful and you learned a little bit of something. If you like what you see, feel free to hit the like button, and I will see you again next week. Have a great day.